The first day of the NFL draft, that's usually where you find the stars. But come the second and third days of the NFL draft, that's where you can find other stars. But more importantly, that's ultimately where championship teams are really made. And when you look at all the subplots going into the second day of the 2013 NFL draft, there were many interesting ones. There were several players with first round potential grades that ended up dropping to the second day of the draft. All the quarterbacks minus EJ Manuel were still on the board. Lots of interesting subplots that played out. And a part of this second day of the draft, you had some teams that did very, very well and were winners, and you had some others that frankly were losers. Let's talk about the winners first. Thought about it overnight, and I decided to make the San Diego Chargers one of the real big winners on day 2 of this draft. In day 1, they addressed offensive tackle with DJ Fluker. They came back on day 2, and they decided to play the board and go for value. And getting Monte Teo at the beginning of round 2, yes, they traded up a few picks, but all they had to give up in return was their own second-round pick and a fourth-round pick. Not a huge price to pay for a middle linebacker that had a mid to late first-round grade on him. Great value, even if it wasn't necessarily a huge position of need for the Chargers. I still really like the pick. And then getting a guy like Keenan Allen before the knee problems and before the smoky test came back. The bottom line is Keenan Allen was graded as a first-round wide receiver. To be able to get him in the middle of round 3, now you've given Phillip Rivers a little protection with DJ Fluker. Now you've given him a weapon in the passing game in Keenan Allen. A great second day for the San Diego Chargers. The 49ers, I think, did themselves a lot of good on the second day, being able to trade down from 34 a few picks and still getting a great talent like Tank Carradine. He's a guy that could add yet another pass-rushing element to that 49ers defense. Great value in round 2. And then Lemonwois from Auburn. Great value, another pass rusher like that in round 3. You're taking these guys based off of their athletic upside and giving yourself some depth, and hopefully maybe at least one of these guys pans out and becomes a big-time player for you. I like what the Pittsburgh Steelers did. They just played the board, and they let the guys fall to them. Now, maybe I would have taken Eddie Lacy or Monte Ball, maybe, over Le'Veon Bell. But it's not such a big gap that I'm going to knock the Steelers for taking a guy like Bell. It was good value at that spot in the middle of the second round. It was definitely a position of need. And then getting Marcus Wheaton from Oregon State, getting him in the middle of the third round. Again, a talented player that just fell to him. Right now, the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the big winners in this draft, and they haven't done anything except sit tight and take a valuable player at a position of need. You look at the New York Giants. I wasn't huge on what they did on the first round when they took Justin Pugh, even though I liked the player. But they came back in day 2. They focused on the trenches some more, this time on the defensive side of the ball. Great value. Hankins in the middle part of round 2, and then getting DeMontre Moore where he really belonged in the middle of round 3. These are kind of boom or bust prospects, but they definitely could come in and provide some depth along that defensive line. And in the case of Moore, maybe he has some versatility to potentially play outside linebacker. Great value for Jerry Reese and the Giants front office on day number 2. You look at the St. Louis Rams. T.J. McDonald, he addresses a need. Maybe there were better safeties on the board, maybe, but it was a solid value pick in my opinion. But where I think they really came out big winners was with their other pick in round 3, getting Stedman Bailey. So let me get this straight. You add Tavon Austin in the top 10, trade up to go get him 8th overall. Then you go get his teammate who had like 20 touchdown receptions in 2012, and really to me wasn't that much lower of a graded prospect than Tavon Austin. You get him at the end of round 3. The St. Louis Rams are doing a lot of good things right now, and they did it again on day 2 of this year's draft. You look at the New Orleans Saints. They became big winners to me on day 2 without even having a second-round pick, but getting Terron Armstead and John Jenkins, getting a future potential left tackle for that offensive line to protect Drew Brees' blind side, and getting a nose tackle that you desperately need. All the talk about outside linebackers in a 3-4. If you don't have a fat ass that could clog up some space and cause some damage in the middle of a 3-4, you're not going to be able to run the 3-4 very well, and that's the bottom line. You have to have a nose tackle to run the 3-4. Ask the Chargers about Jamal Williams for many years, the Steelers with Casey Hampton, all the teams that had Ted Washington for many years. And to be able to get both Armstead and Jenkins, guys that carried borderline late first, early second round grades in round 3, a huge day for the New Orleans Saints. But my biggest winner has to be the Tennessee Titans. Trading up a few spots to get a guy like Justin Hunter, who was a first round talent to me. Being able to get Wilson, being able to get Gooden, I mean, getting Wilson, he to me was one of the best corners in this class, and as an NFL starter, getting him in round 3, then getting Xavier Gooden from Missouri, he's okay value there. The Titans were really big winners, but this is what you do. This is how you help out a young quarterback. The Titans are showing you how. You draft an offensive lineman to protect him with the 10th pick in Warmack. Maybe that's a bit high for a guard, but their offensive line was putrid last year, in particular in the running game. Now you've got a guy in Warmack that can impact both areas of the offensive game, both the running game and the passing game. To me, ultimately, that's very good value with the 10th pick. And then to get another weapon for Jake Locker and Justin Hunter with the 34th pick. Now, if Kenny Britt is healthy and has his head out of his ass, you've got him. You've got Kendall Wright can go into the slot, and potentially have Justin Hunter on the outside. There aren't very many excuses left for Jake Locker. It's put up or shut up time in 2013, and that makes the Tennessee Titans the biggest winner on day number 2. But a lot of other teams did themselves a lot of good. But for all the teams that did themselves some good, there are also some big losers as well. Several losers on day 2 of the NFL draft. First and foremost, I don't have the NFL Network, so I'm stuck watching ESPN's coverage exclusively, sadly. Day 2 coverage was a little bit better than day 1's, but that's not saying a whole lot. Having Kuiper and McShay there does help a little bit because they can kind of bicker and create some life. I like Dilfer being there. But where are the brothers at, man? We need some variety. We need some soul. And most importantly of all, we need some character at the NFL draft. It's very bland and very vanilla. There's very little personality. And that was especially evident in day 2 of the draft. And also, Chris Mortensen. How many years you been doing this job? Stop reading off a fucking teleprompter. Terrible. The Jacksonville Jaguars, to me, were big losers, not because of the players that they took. I thought they got solid value in both their 2nd and 3rd round picks in Cyprien and Gratz. They filled needs. They were solid values. But where I think they end up being losers is the fact that they passed on the chance to draft Geno Smith. I think that's something that potentially they're going to look back on and rue 3 years from now. And as a result, to me at this moment, makes them losers. Matt Barkley and Ryan Nassib. Those 2 guys didn't get drafted on day number 2. Note to any NFL prospect when you are a junior or a 3rd-year sophomore, if you are projected to be a top 10 pick, you go and declare. Now Barkley's looking at being a 4th-round pick. The difference financially between if he would have declared last year, and even with it being in a class with Luck and Griffin, Barkley's still a top 10 pick. And where he goes in the 4th round, the difference in that is probably, what, $15+ million? Maybe $20 million? It's a lot of cheddar just to go back and not really do much of anything at USC last year. I hope some players learn the lesson. When you're a top 10 pick, you go. You don't take the chance. You just give people another year to pick you apart. You give people another year to find excuses not to take you, and then you plummet to the 4th round like Matt Barkley did. You look at the Seattle Seahawks, taking Christian McCall, and yeah, I don't know what they were really doing. I'm just being honest with you. I thought they could have done a little bit better on day number 2, and then taking a defensive lineman in the 3rd round, taking a tackle. Yeah, they needed a defensive tackle a little bit, but you probably could have done a little bit more to give Russell Wilson help right now. And with Marshawn Lynch and Robert Turbin, I don't know where the fuck Michael's going to get a lot of playing time. Where's he going to get a lot of playing time? Maybe 2 or 3 years down the road, maybe they thought this was really good value. I thought this is a bit high. I thought you could have got him maybe in the 3rd round. But I think the Seahawks panicked a little bit because they saw the running backs being drafted in round 2, and they wanted to make sure they got their guy that they really liked. To me, the Kansas City Chiefs are losers. They traded their 2nd round pick in this draft for Alex Smith. And then in the 3rd round, they took Kels. And then they took another player that the name even escapes me right now, frankly. They could have done better. Look, I understand. Oh, they took Niall Davis, excuse me, from Arkansas. It just came to me. I apologize. Guys like Kels and Davis, they have big upside. These guys, we could potentially look back 2 years from now. I could be spot on wrong and say that, these guys ended up becoming big-time players. But Davis has durability concerns and fumbling problems. Kels has character issues galore. And the fact that they traded away a 2nd round pick in this draft for Alex Smith, who was a backup for the 2nd half of 2012, they gave up a 2nd round pick for somebody else's backup quarterback. The Chiefs weren't winners on this day. Sorry, folks. The Miami Dolphins, they gave up their 2nd round pick to the Raiders to trade up 9 spots to get Deion Jordan, which wasn't their biggest need and probably wasn't even best player available on the board at that time. My humble opinion, at least. a good player, but there are still questions and concerns, and I still wonder how he's going to fit in there. But then when you look at what they did get Jamar Taylor. I give them that in round 2. But the biggest failure to me was when you look at it. Was it worth giving up both the 12th and 42nd pick to trade up to get Deion Jordan? Or could you have stayed there at number 12 maybe, taken a really good player, either on the offensive, defensive side of the ball, like a Latulele or Sheldon Richardson maybe, and then taken that second-round pick and traded it away for Brandon Albert? Which would you rather have? To me, I would rather have that scenario, so that makes the Miami Dolphins a loser to me. But the biggest losers of all, yet again, are the Chicago Bears. And I'm not just saying this because I'm a Bears fan, but they have to be the dumbest front office right now when it comes to running a draft board. Who the hell is ranking the players on the big board? Is it Phil Emery? Because if he is, he has clearly established himself to be an effing moron. Now, it's one thing that they didn't have a third-round pick in this draft because they had to package that up to get Brandon Marshall. You'd say, yeah, I do that any day of the week. 2/3 for Brandon Marshall. Yes, but think about it. The Broncos originally drafted Brandon Marshall in the 4th round. Maybe if the Bears weren't such incompetent fucks in the draft, in particular trying to address the offensive side of the ball, you could have found your own Brandon Marshall in the 3rd or 4th round. You would have never had to trade the damn picks, and you would have had your 3rd-round pick here to add some talent and depth that you sorely need on, frankly, either side of the damn ball. But then when you sit there, you stay tight at number 50, and you take a guy like Bostic from Florida, an okay player, but to me, a 3rd, maybe even 4th-round pick. I saw some people rate him as a 1st-round prospect. Just because of one hit he put on Teddy Bridgewater does not a 1st-round pick make him. Give me a fucking break, especially when a talented player like Arthur Brown is still on the damn board. Especially when you could have potentially given up your 2nd or 4th-round pick to move up a few spots, maybe to go get Monte Teo, who's a better player to me than Jonathan Bostic. I don't even know if Jonathan Bostic can play in the middle of the NFL. He might be Nick Roach's replacement on the strong side. Ooh, spend a 2nd-round pick on a strong side linebacker. Good Christ. When you look at the Bears and their 2nd-round pick and all the talents that they passed, the fact that they had to trade away their 3rd-rounder last year to get Brandon Marshall because of all their failures in the draft in the past, especially at the wide receiver position, beyond question, the raging losers, yet again, on day 2 of this draft, when you had guys still like Barkley and Nassib on the board, you had a wide receiver like Keenan Allen still on the board, you had all of these players on the board. Arthur Brown is on the fucking board. A corner like Jamar Taylor is on the fucking board. And you decided in all of your infinite wisdom, hell, I like Jamie Collins, who the Patriots took better than Jonathan Bostic. The Chicago Bears chose Jonathan Bostic because Phil Emery has a hard-on for SEC players. How'd that work out with Alshon Jeffrey last year? What a dipshit. So far, the Bears are leading the pack. And for day 2 of the grade, they get a J. Day 1, they got an L, so they made an improvement. They got up to the letter J. As in, they just don't get it. And they just don't learn. And Phil Emery just has no fucking clue how the draft works. The Bears organization and scouts just have no fucking clue what best player available means. They clearly don't. And no, I won't be proven wrong on this, because no matter what, with both Kyle Long in round 1 and Jonathan Bostic in round 2, there are going to be better players than them who were picked after them. So that will make me right, and for the 2nd year in a row, that will make Phil Emery and the Bears front office and organization clearly wrong. No surprise there.